Hi, good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome. This is Rebecca Quave, and I'm so happy that you're joining in right now. And we have a lot of terrific things we're going to go through. If you were on live earlier, apparently we were inadvertently having some of the silent teachings, which is all well and good, except that that's not what you were at all expecting or signed up for today. So, okay, great. I just got confirmation that, here, shut the door, thank you. I just got confirmation that we do have sound right now, so we'll go ahead and get started. So again, thank you for hanging in there if you've gone ahead and stayed with the broadcast until I got everything reset, or if you're watching this on replay, that's perfectly fine as well. Okay, so either way, go ahead and settle in and have a deep breath. And I'm going to, over the course of this preview, address some universal things that will apply to you, and I'll address some individual concerns, which also will have application that you can put in for yourself, and we'll also do some work as a group as well. Now, one of the main things that we're going to look at, whether you're here, some of you are here because you're actually already registered for the 6-month series that's going to begin soon. And that's great. Some of you may be here because you're considering jumping into one of the last few spots available for that very small group. Or if you're much newer, you might just be considering taking a look at the previous 6-month series that's already completed that you can now get hold of and move through at your own pace. Okay? And in any case is perfectly wonderful, whatever reason you're here. I know that you will get whatever you're here for out of it. So one of the main things that we're going to look at today, and that we will be integrating over the course of the 6-month series, is what happens when you're going along on what you think is your spiritual path, and you have these moments of feeling really great and really connected and getting in touch with that changeless part of you, getting in touch with that truth of you, that absolute unspeakable love, right? And it feels great and you think, wow. And then before you know it, the but what about starts showing up. Right? So, and you get the feeling that you're either going forward and then falling back, or that you're, some people say it feels like I'm on a roller coaster. Whatever it is, if you don't understand what's happening with that, and you don't know how to handle that, how to resolve it, how to integrate it, you can instead turn to various types of judgment, right? So let's say you feel fantastic and then you feel like you've gone backwards. You're either going to judge yourself that you're not doing something right or not doing something enough, or you'll put a judgment on whatever your practice you were using was and think that it's insufficient in some way, and so go jumping from practice to practice and path to path and whatever. And when you think that doesn't pan out, then it's back to judgment on you that you're somehow wrong or doing something wrong or not enough or doing something not enough. So the biggest focus, even though we are going to address all through the 6 months, the biggest types and for each person individually, what these forms of but what about that come up, right? My primary intention is to really support you in setting a template for yourself of universally how you can deal with that. So rather than, okay, let's walk you through how to handle it when, you have that peace and love and joy, and then, but what about my finances? But what about my health? But what about whatever shows up? it's great to handle all of those, and we're going to handle them. But like I said, more importantly, what we're going to handle is you having that sovereignty to know and to understand how, and to have walked through it, that you can now walk through it on your own confidently to handle any and every but what about that your ego comes up with or throws at you. And again, it's not that it throws it at you because it's bad or because it's evil or because it's out to get you or sabotage you or anything like that. Okay, so it's important for us to establish that from the very beginning as well, that the ego is simply operating on the terms that it understands, right? It's built in a certain structure, and it's a structure of duality, and it's a structure of matching the information it has to other information, right? It's a structure of taking the information it has and extrapolating that in terms of what it already understands. So that's how our spiritual path can also really easily seem like it gets hijacked by the ego, because the ego sits and listens to, teachings about having this ever expanding love and joy and peace. And the only way it knows to understand that or to interpret that is everything's going to go my way all the time, right? So it sets about trying to accomplish that in the way that it has accomplished things in the past. So it thinks it's going to get that and achieve it and own it and finally cross the finish line and finally be enough and get its gold star and have everything go its way all the time. And in reality, that's not at all what it's about. In reality, you already are, and already are experiencing and living everything and more than what your ego can conceive of as there, okay? But what's happening is simultaneously, you have the experience of duality playing out over the top of that. So, your ego's understanding is that you have to get from here to there, right? That you have to get from duality playing out to whatever it thinks it can conceive of as the true nature of you. When in reality, the true you is always there and the duality is always there. The question is, where is your identification? Okay, so we're going to get more and more practiced and more comfortable with living in that identification with the changeless you, and at the same time learning how to navigate everything on top of that, learning how to navigate that from a new driver's seat. So rather than navigating life from all the push and pull and ego motivated things, right? We're going to, and also rather than what the ego thinks is, I'm going to get there and I'm going to be enlightened and I'm either going to sit in a cave or everything is just going to always go my way and I'm going to be, right? Rather than either one of those, it's this integration, and that's what we're going to be getting comfortable with, is navigating life, but from the reality of you, rather than navigating life from out here in the suffering. Okay, so the same as when you first learn to drive a car, probably at first that seemed overwhelming. I know for me it did. Okay, so I'll give you a little confession right now, which was when I first learned to drive a car, at first my driving instructor didn't even understand what was going wrong because he had never seen anyone do this before. I was actually trying to drive the car with my attention focused on about the first 5 or 6 feet of asphalt directly in front of the car, like looking down at the ground. So, and you can imagine if you've driven a car, how ridiculous that is. Like that is disappearing so fast. Of course, you're going to be having wild anxiety about that. It's very difficult to navigate, right? So trying to drive fixated on that 5 or 6 feet of road directly in front of the car was a ridiculous task. It was an anxiety-inducing task. It was really difficult. It made no sense. Once I learned, and probably where most people start from, to drive, with a more broad view of what's going on, it's much simpler. But even when you begin from there, right, you're still much more, you're paying careful attention to everything versus when you've been driving for 20 years, you're driving, you're drinking, you're eating, you're changing a baby, you can do many things at once because you've integrated the task of what it is to basically drive. Okay. So that's what we're going to move from in your life, is instead of that place of unspeakable love and peace being something that you sometimes go and touch in your meditation, and then there's life out here, which is crazy, right? We're going to learn to be in that, seated in that love, and navigate from there. Okay. So I'm going to do a quick check before we do a group process. I'm going to see if we have new questions, because initially in the first broadcast, everything I was actually getting was, there's no sound. So I appreciate everyone who did email in and let me know that, because otherwise it's hard to know. Okay. All right. I think that I'm just going to reset this so that the new messages that come in. All right. So let's begin with just starting to set that overall template, right, of what to do with that noise that starts up saying, but what about, but what about, but what about, but what about? Okay. So go ahead and take a deep breath. Give yourself the chance to settle. Go ahead and have your attention and your intent on being open to letting you reveal to yourself what's there for you, what is true for you, what is available for you next, and having your attention and your intent on your natural movement, which is expansive, which is always blooming outward in every direction, which is never moving by attempts at stifling, attempts at elimination. It's in a constant outward expansion and curious exploration. There you go. Feeling into, just offering out the question, what is it that's changeless in me? Where is that part of me that never changes? And letting yourself connect to that now. And bringing to mind times in the past when you felt connected there, or you felt this tremendous love, and then you felt like you got hit from left field, or you felt like you slipped backwards, or you felt like you were on that roller coaster. And chances are it came in the form of some kind of, but what about, right? That you felt in this piece, and yet you felt like you were hit with something that seemed like a problem or challenge or conflict that seemed separate. It seemed apart from this peace and love that you were connected with. And notice that chances are when you thought there was that separation, you felt that your only choice was to either somehow remain in that peace and love and leave what you thought was the problem or conflict or challenge unaddressed, or that your choice was to leave that and go address the problem. And neither choice seems that appealing, does it? So again, since your mind, your ego sees everything in these black and white either or choices, what if there's more to it than that? Okay, so what if you have another option, which is, there you go, tap back into being connected to that changeless part of you, that infinite love. And what if now you recognize that you have the choice of enveloping whatever you thought was that problem or challenge or difficulty or conflict. Let that separation just start to dissipate between you in the peace and the love and the conflict or challenge or problem or difficulty. Let that separation start to dissolve. Let yourself expand that peace, that love of you. Let it expand, expand, expand. Let it include what you thought was that problem or challenge or difficulty. Let it just radiate right through it. Let it wrap around it. Rather than thinking that you either have to flee that problem or leave behind the peace to go address the problem, let yourself include what seemed to be the problem into that peace and love. Let whatever your ego was bringing forward to you as, but what about, let it be completely embraced now. And notice that right away, as you go ahead and bring that peace and love to what you thought was the problem, as you go ahead and bring the problem into that peace and that love, as you let that expansion occur, as you let that separation fall and let those two be interwoven, first of all, you're going to feel a lot more relaxed because you don't feel like you had to leave behind your peace to go get the problem or hide out in your peace and let the problem just blow up everywhere. All right, so it's not that you're just stuck with only those two choices anymore. So that's immediate. But what you'll notice as you continue that and you have a little bit of curiosity, you'll find out either the challenge or problem completely dissolves, or you're going to go ahead and now have the space to give yourself the indications of what you can do to cooperate with the resolution of it. So that's another thing we're going to be getting much more comfortable with over the 6 months, is the difference between, again, since the mind goes in this binary way, it thinks that either we get things done by its traditional means of force and manipulation, or they don't get done. But we're going to get more comfortable and more competent in what it is that it's not an either or of, okay, I just don't do anything, or I'm in action. It's not either one of those. It's I'm in cooperation with things being resolved. I'm cooperative with what needs to happen. So in that case, you're not forcing, you're not manipulating, but whatever is required of you, you naturally move in that direction as well. Okay, so what would it feel like? Just tune into it right now. What would it feel like to live your life completely aligned with love, completely cooperative with harmony, completely surrendered to peace, and also cooperative with the resolution of anything and everything that you thought was a problem for you? Okay, so that's the difference between I'm going to force an outcome, or I'm going to become cooperative with the resolution. Now, as we move through the 6 months, we will be dealing with, the individual types of ways that we tend to have been out of alignment and out of sync and out of cooperation with that harmony and that flow. Okay, because in each area there are then a lot of other things that we can dig up, right? So with money, for example, we'll be going through in detail all the things that show up for people in that area. In particular, subconsciously, dissociating from that because of the energy that's been attached to in the past on this planet. And so subconsciously, lots of people who, if you're listening to this right now, right, chances are your whole reason for being here is that your frequency, your vibration is about love. You're here. What you feel deepest in you is that you're here to deliver this love and be this love and expand this love. So subconsciously, if you've had difficulties with money, chances are one of the big things going on is that dissociation from the killing and blood and death and really distorted power issues that have been on money versus what you're actually here to do, and why you have that sense of, I just can't get away from it. Why doesn't it get resolved? Is that what you're actually being asked to do is to bring that into your field and transmute it, right? So to take what has been carrying a really heavy kind of thing, for you to start to recognize now that you are so completely, even to use the word powerful is a little, because there's been so much misuse of that word and the understanding of it. But you get what I'm talking about, that you're strong enough that that's not something for you to stay away from, that in fact it's here to be pulled into your field for you to transmute it and bring it to this place of love. Okay, so, and that's true in many different kinds of situations. So throughout the 6 months that's about to begin, we're going to be taking piece by piece, going through, getting more comfortable with and getting more proficient at operating and navigating your life from that place of love and handling those things as they come up. And rather than being in that place of, well, I feel so conflicted and so split between, sometimes I have peace and then the world comes at me. All right. So I'm going to just check on the messages here again. And they're not, well, now we have the sound working, but the emails aren't loading. So fortunately they loaded when you guys were notifying me that there was no sound, but now they're not loading, and it says it's still sending 3 of 10. So all of you who told me about the sound, I replied to you and told you that we were going to give it another go, but apparently it's not actually sent that email to you yet. So anyway, we'll go ahead and continue with some other things. Also, though, I told you I'd give you the details about if you weren't actually in the previous 6 months that we did. It was really amazing. We really went deeper and deeper and deeper into settling that identification in what you really are, rather than just getting these little tastes of it. Okay. So if you didn't experience that, that's actually now available, and there should be a button at the bottom of this page where you can go over to it, that's available, that you can get instant access to all of those video sessions, all of the audios that went along with it, all of the bowls audios that went along with it, and you can go ahead and go through that at your own pace. So that's a new option. And then if you're ready to go ahead and jump into one of the live spots, I think I've got maybe 3 or 4 spots left, because I keep this group 12 or under, because what happens during the 6 months is I treat the whole group the same way that I deal with private clients. So on each session, It's not just a broadcast. It's whatever's going on with every single person, even if you're not live on it, is counted into the mix and is addressed. And we progress along through the 6 months time is really a sufficient amount of time for you to make big changes. So it's addressing one of the things that I've seen happen with people really in any area, but also in their spiritual journey, is our mind tends to want like fast and furious, right? So we can make a lot of intense changes in a really short period of time, but that's what then leaves you oftentimes with that sense of, oh, well, then I fell backwards, or, oh, I'm on this roller coaster and things. So if you make this really fast jump in a small space of time, but then you don't integrate it, then you've got a lot more things to address. So taking this over a longer time period gives us the space to really incorporate both, right? So last time we did a 6 months, people definitely had these intense bursts of, they feel like they're having a breakthrough every day for a week straight or whatever it is. But instead of then the program being over and then they're like, whoa, what happened? How come the world's coming at me? Instead, we're still meeting for the integration of that and for the kind of the ripening of that, right? The maturity of that, where you start. So first you have the breakthrough, then you integrate it. Then the third bit that usually gets lost, even if the integration wasn't lost, right? They're shooting, they all want the breakthrough, but that's only the beginning. So there's the breakthrough, then there's the integration, and then there's you've got to take it out and drive it. Okay? So we're able to really address all three of those things in a cohesive way by meeting that way over 6 months. The other thing that I'm really glad to see it addressed for people is a lot of times when they participate in some kind of a guided program for a short, intense period of time, it might be you got a phone call every single day, or you got 3 phone calls a day, or you've got da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which is great for keeping that intensity for a short time. But again, when it ends, you can feel almost like there's this withdrawal. And again, then that judgment comes back on yourself of, well, how come I'm not able to do this on my own? How come, right? And you're looking for the next hit and the next fix and the next whatever. But by spacing it out over 6 months' time and not having it in a format where we're just every day, it gives you the chance to consistently through that time get your own feet, right? So we meet together and you have that, and then at the same time you're never in that complete constant stimulation that can create a dependency. Okay, so that for me is always what it's about, is just supporting you in really reconnecting with the truth of you and the sovereignty of that, and helping you practice into having this template for yourself of how to continue on having that from within and doing it on your own. And of course, it's always great to get together because, we didn't land ourselves on a planet of 7 billion people in order to completely be isolated, right? We wouldn't have set it up that way. So I'm just going to check one more time for any questions to see if these are loading properly yet. And otherwise, we'll just do something else as a group. Okay. So let's also get this in place, because as I mentioned on that first 6 month series that we did last year, that you can get hold of instantly if you weren't in it, we did a lot of deepening and deepening and deepening and expanding that identification with what you really are, rather than it's something I'm going to go taste and have an experience of and get high from, right? So that was that first step from, and of course for lots of the first step is even getting a taste of it, right? When you look around, that's what many people are coming to for the first time, but chances are you've done that plenty of times. So the first movement was from tasting that, getting bits of it, and then feeling like I had it, but I lost it, right? So we moved from that into deepening and strengthening and expanding that being your primary point of identification. So then from there, from now I'm identified as that, now what? What do I do? The temptation is to think that your operation out in the world means, oh wait, well now I have to swap back to ego me and go be a maniac so that I can manipulate the world, right? So that's the next step is, okay, now driving this whole thing from that identification. But let's take a moment now to even back up a little bit of doing something to even more deepen that identification, because there's a lot of people watching right now that's going to be helpful, that you're maybe more in that stage of the process. Okay, so go ahead and take a deep breath. And bring to mind wherever it is that you feel like you've been. Whether you think it's good or not so good or anything in between. Go ahead and first bring forward whatever it is that you've thought in the past that you've gotten it a bit and then you've lost it, or that you've had what you thought was some big experience and now you either haven't known what to do with it or you've been constantly trying to chase getting back to it. Go ahead and bring that forward. And what if the whole reason that you were even able to experience that in the first place, that you were even able to taste that in the first place, had less to do with whatever you were doing at the time, whatever you were wearing at the time, whatever was going on? Some of those things may have supported it, right? If you were doing a certain practice or whatever it is. But can you recognize now that whatever was surrounding that moment of experience for you, that moment of you tasting and experiencing the truth of you, that it was just the surrounding? Okay, what if the whole reason that you could experience that at all was more to do with the fact that it's always available to you because it is you? So what if you could give yourself permission, just out of your own sovereignty, what if you could give yourself permission to experience it right now? Just gently, curiously ask, what would it be like to drop right back into that right this minute, just because it's always there, and just because I'm allowed to do that? That there's nothing that you need to wait for, there's nothing you need permission from. Bring forward all sense of feeling that there's anything that you have to accomplish first in order to be able to experience that all the time. What would it feel like to open up even more right now to letting your primary identity, your primary identification, be what you thought you could only taste sometimes. And now simultaneously dropping deeper into that, but not resisting anything that comes up that says otherwise, right? All the other things that say, but what about da 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 da? What if you haven't done whatever first, or you don't deserve it, or you haven't meditated enough to get that, or you're not, whatever it is. Don't dismiss it, don't ignore it. Remember, expand that love around it. Invite all of those objections and hesitations and resistances. Invite them to join you in this deepening, expanding identification with that changeless love that you are. Okay, so just moving into that. And what if the main thing for you to do is really just cooperate with and give permission for the deepening and the expanding of your identification with that changeless, infinite love that you are, that is your very nature. And what if it's much easier than you think to bring your mind along with that, to bring your ego along with that in a harmonious, whole way, where from that identification as what you truly are, you move forward, you navigate through life, that it's not an either-or proposition of I have to be peaceful in a cave or I have to put out these fires that are going on. Nor is it an expectation on your ego's part that when you do enough and get there and get it all right, that then everything is just going to be perfect and go its way all the time. Okay? What if what you're really here to do and is available for you now is to live from that peace, from that love, and experiencing life happening, but not having to be at the whim of it, not having to believe that what you are or your value or your identity or anything is or can be externally determined or changeable in any way. Okay? And of course, it's also really fun to live that way. And most importantly, it's much easier than what the ego expects that it is. Why is that? Because it's on a completely different platform than the structure that the ego is built on. So you have to, you have to just bless its adorable little soul, right? You have to just love it that it's been fighting and squirming to try to accomplish something that is outside of its whole realm of existence. So of course it can't understand it. Of course it's going to think it's like really hard and almost impossible, because in reality it is. The good news is the fact that it's impossible for the ego on its terms isn't bad news, because the truth is the reason it's impossible for the ego to accomplish on the ego's terms is it's always there anyway. It's always there anyway, just outside of, but not separate from, encompassing the whole structure that the ego is built on. Okay? So in either of these 6-month series, if you catch up at your own pace on the one that's already complete, or if you join in the live one we're about to begin, either way, you're going to get a lot more practice with that, of how to integrate all of that and manage it and live from there, and to dissolve and unravel all of these previous misunderstandings that have caused us suffering about who we are, what we're here for, what the ego is, what the mind is, what love is. So if you're ready to just have all of that untangled and dissolved and live from the truth of all of those things, I invite you to jump in and join me, and we'll have a great bit of fun. And no matter what, I know that that's what you're here doing anyway. And the final thing I'd really like to say today is just a tremendous thank you for that, because I know that if you're watching this right now, that's what you're already doing. You're already in every moment, whether you realize it or not, just giving and being such a tremendous gift, just by even those moments when you think you're having a rough day, or you think you're, quote, gone wrong. What's happening is that, things are coming up that can be transmuted through you. And even if you feel like you're not doing it at first, the fact is you are here doing that, and you're here raising everything up and helping to usher in something truly beautiful. And so I always thank you from the bottom of my heart, with gratitude I can't really express with words, for you being here and you being here, you and you being you. And I just love you. I love you, and I'll see you soon.